Okay, the recording has started. And also, if you could see people that are trying to get into the lobby, please admit them along with me because sometimes I'm preoccupied. And again, just to let you know that, when I'm looking this way, it means I'm looking at my slides. And for some reason, if I mute myself, just unmute yourself and let me know that I'm muted and, you're not hearing what I have to say. Okay. And then when I'm looking at this screen, then I'm looking at the chat and and to see where we are in the actual presentation. Okay, so just before we get started, are there any questions at all? Anybody could unmute and ask a question. Okay, we're all good. Want to get started? Okay, good.
I'm sorry, I did have real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
I asked it in the discussion board area as well, but one of the assignments where we just do the surveys, do we need to submit that anywhere, or just doing the surveys itself, it's automatically submitted?
You do the survey, and I can see, when I go into the platform, the Pearson platform, I can see. But if you take a look at topic 13B, that's at the end of the course where I'd like you to do a snapshot or a screen shot. Excuse me, I'm just going to mute people here. I'd like you to do a screenshot of all the surveys that you did, and you can get bonus marks. All right. So some of you, make sure that if for some reason your subscription goes off, if you haven't saved those screenshots, then all your information gets lost after 14 days if you haven't paid for your Rebel surveys. All right. So just to know that, but that's when you do it. So you don't have to do the screenshot every time. And I know there's in some instructions, particular surveys that ask you to do the screenshot, and that's the only time you really need to do that. Okay? Does that answer your question, Nick?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. Okay, so just let me kind of review how this course is going to run. Now again, there's a lot of information on this course, and we all know that. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give you a path to be able to absorb what you need to do. And I've shown you that one illustration last webinar where it's really important that we start with the commentary. And that's what I'm running off of right now. So it's topic 2 commentary, and that's in the weekly topic folder on Blackboard, and then there's the actual presentations from the text, and those are really important. And you're going to see that I'm going to flash, I think it's chapter 3 tonight, so that you can read that. And that's very rich, and there's a lot of information. And then your actual participation topics, whether they're individual or especially, the group participation topics. There's questions that center around that. So the better job that you do on those, the better off you're going to be. And then what it is there's a actual slide deck in each topic on Blackboard, and I'm guiding you to kind of go onto that slide deck to find out what's going on. So I'm going to show you. I talk about something highlighted or bolded text, or I use this little golden key, and those are times when you say, okay, I should kind of look into that. Now, is that going to point to the exact question? No, it isn't, but it's really going to give you a sense of really what's important in this course. Okay, so that's the piece that's important. And then as well, at the end of the 4th topic of each test, so topic 4, topic 8, and topic 12, there's practice tests, and that will give you a really good idea of what kind of question is going to be asked on the test. Now, will there be a similar question? Nah, likely not. No, maybe similar, but not the same question. But it really will give you a sense of what to expect. But if you just went to the practice tests and think that you've covered the course for the test, it's not going to work for you. Okay, so that's where that is. And how we learn this course is that I really want you to understand how we connect management theory to management principles to management tools. because in previous courses that I've given, people didn't understand, well, why are we taking VRIO? I mean, what's that got to do with management theory? Well, I've given you 3 documents and to be able to show you how this all connects. Because what's really going to be important is when we get to the next wave of management theories that are going to be required, from 2025 on, you're really going to have to go back and find out, well, how did things get done? And it's from that knowledge that you build to be able to get to management theories, principles, and tools that will work, in the new generation of artificial intelligence. So that's how this all connects. So you can see on the management theory, you learn the background on the theorists and what their contributions are. And guess what? I mean, we're still looking at some of the stuff that Frederick Taylor did way back during the Industrial Revolution, because some of it still applies. And a particular example around that is like the fire service. All right, it's a command and control structure, and has those pieces around effectiveness and efficiency, because there's a lot of risk involved. There's loss of life and there's loss of property. So Frederick, this guy, his theories are still, and his management principles and the tools are still important. Right, so you draw from the past to be able to build on the future, and then from the management theory you go to the management principles. Well, that's derived from the theories. Here's the theory. Based on that, here's the guidelines. Here's the principles on how we're going to deal with stuff, and how we're going to deal with it. Well, you need some tools, and that's when management tools come in. So we're connecting management theorists to management theories, to management principles, to management applications and techniques and tools. And that's why in the assignments, I want you to make those connections, so that when you say, you make an assertion, I want you to go back to a theorist and a theory that connects to the assertion that you made, and then you demonstrate that, hey, I get this. Okay, so that's what that's all about, and it's all based on helping you when you leave this this program. You're going to have the critical thinking ability to be able to now start formulating your own sense of how things should get done in management, right? So that's what that's all about. So any questions about that at all? Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. All right, so again, in this topic, chapter 3 is very important, and the thing is too, so it's really going to give you some really good fuel to be able to, or content fuel to be able to understand that. And again, here's where on Blackboard you go to this topic weekly commentary. We're in topic 2 right now, and we're looking at topic 2 commentary, and this isn't this is just a facsimile, so it's not totally up to date, but we're on the revision of 2025-01-07, all right, going through. And then again, I gave you a little bit on Blackboard on communicating, and I just want to kind of emphasize this Gary Gernard method. He's on the website, and if you get on his newsletter, he has all kinds of tips on how to present yourself and how to bring validation to what you're saying. And I've been on his newsletter now for, I bet you, 10 years. And by the time you spend 1 or 2 years on his newsletters, you basically covered off everything in his books and his training. So it's really good. It's free. So you can get onto this and get yourself in the mode of learning how to present, because in real estate it's location, location, location. As a business practitioner in business, it's communication, communication, communication. And the more that you can increase your skills and capabilities on communicating, whether verbally or written, the more effective you're going to be. The more you're going to get what you need and get what you want, because you know how to say it. And how to your audience. And I'll give you the perfect example. So when I was a project manager in one of my other career lifetimes, we would go to a program management committee, and we would basically compete for resources. And guess what? The people who really understood that committee as an audience, the people who had better presentations, they got the resources. It was just that simple. All right. So that's why I'm trying to make this point for you. All right. Okay. So the deliverables for this week. So now we talk about chapter 3, and in chapter 3, and that presentation, by the way, is in that folder, for topic 2. So you can go right to Blackboard and pull that up. And here's what you're going to look at. You're going to look at the steps in decision making, in that process, the factors that affect how decisions are made. You're going to look at contemporary issues in managerial decision making, and you're going to look at, especially now where it's really going to become important, and I keep on talking about triple bottom line, how ethics and social responsibility relate to that decision making. Okay, so that's really what we're covering today. And again, the people who make the better decisions get to the results. It's that simple. All right. And I'm gonna talk about an author at the end of this presentation, to show you how each little decision that you make, if you've got a vision in mind, if you've got purpose, definiteness of purpose in mind, each decision that you make will get you closer and closer to where you need to be. And it's like compound interest, so if you're making good decisions on a routine basis, it's going to take some time to get there, but you will get there. And I'll talk about that a little more when we get through on that piece. So what do you have to do, for January 20th? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 surveys that you have to do. And just understand that the True Colors one is not a Pearson Revel survey. It's an actual survey that you click on the actual Blackboard post and pick up on the, what you need to pick from. And I'm going to show you that, and then fill that out and then just upload the results of that piece. All right. And participation 2A, well, in this slide deck are, the whole list of the types of cognitive biases there are. So we're, and I'll flag that when we get there. And I want you to pick one. All right. And then write about it, so basically you name one cognitive bias, and then you provide a one-line explanation of why you think that choice of cognitive bias is important to be aware of. And what am I asking you on the why? I'm asking you to think critically, right, on that piece. And then on 2B, that's another individual assignment. I want you to identify the dimensions that you can relate to the 2 management theories covered in this course. Again, I'm trying to get you to connect, from theorist to theory to management principles to tools, and then here, Nick, is where you save your input and include a screenshot of your personal assessment survey results, on that particular participation activity. And this is this hasn't been updated here, I guess, on, so it's due on January 20th and not September 23rd. Okay, so that's the piece. So let's just get into the True Colors. So you're going to go to topic 2, and you're going to click on this PDF, and up on this PDF comes this survey, and you fill out each one of these pieces. And then what do? Then you total your A answers. You total all your A answers, whatever number that you put in there, and you total your B answers. The total of the B answers, and then you put them on here. So how many? What was the score for your A's, and what was the score for your B's, and what was your score for the C's, and what was your score for the the D's? And that should be, the total would still equal 80, and that's really what gives you a sense of the one. Result that is higher than the others is basically what your predominant true color is, and it's just predominant. It's just that's what it is. So that's how to do that. Okay. So any questions about that? Because I always get sort of when they go through that and say, well, how do what do I do? And this kind of give you all the instructions themselves. Okay. Are we all good? Thumbs up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Okay. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I want to take you back to the groups now have been finalized, and what I'd like you to do is to really get a sense of this is an opportunity, to be in a group and really start testing your own mettle, your own personal emotional intelligence to make this work. All right. And this particular model, this is a Bruce Tuckman model that we're going to take in topic 8, but why not, apply it now? Because by week 3, you're going to be doing group projects, and you're going to come together as a group. And so when you come together as a group, you're forming. And then what'll happen is, you start realizing, okay, who wants to do what, and other people have certain preferences, and you may not agree with that or whatever, and that's when you're storming. And then you get to the point saying, well, if we have to make this work, we've got to come up with some guidelines, and that's when you're norming on how we're going to deal with stuff. And then once you get there, then you get to performing. So that's what Bruce Tuckman's model is all about. And I want you to be conscious of that right from the start, to be able to practice something. And you take this away, and I've used this myself. I took this when I was going through college, and I used it in teams. That I was in many teams in my career life. All right. And this is just a standard approach. That what happens. This is human nature. All right. So what I've done is I prepared this paper. It's working in a virtual group, and this link right here will take you to the paper, but it's on Blackboard right now as an announcement. And again, it really will give you some of the tools to be able to understand, what's going on. And I covered off the sort of the tier steps in the actual learning team charter. Why? Because I want you to work those tier steps. And if you have a situation, in your group, deal with it right away. And I want to hear about it. And not only that, in your group assignments, if someone is not carrying their load and they haven't contributed, you let me know on that actual submission that there was just 2 of you or just 1 of you that actually did it. And that gives me a chance to get things, aligned, so that we're not dealing with this, on the last 3 weeks of the course when it's almost too late. All right. And so that this document talks about, in real life, if your team doesn't work, it doesn't matter, how much you put into it, and, and you have the reasons for it. The team has failed, and normally what happens is the whole team, suffers the consequences, and you could get sidelined in an organization because your team just didn't work. It doesn't matter how good of a personal performer you are, if you haven't put it into, the work into making that team work, and effectively, then you're seen as, well, you can't get it done through people. All right. So that's why it's so important, and that's why I want you to look at this team group assignment, as an opportunity to really practice. Okay, so let me just take you a little bit. This is a little video, and this, this comes from where is it? From Mind Tools, and I'm just going to play this video on forming, storming, norming, and performing to really give you a sense of what's going on. Okay, how am I going to do this? Okay.
Uh, Sir, there is no sound in the video. Is it okay?
Okay, I'm hearing that there's no sound, and I think I know what the problem is here. So I'm just going to, where are we here? Okay, there's a setting on I think on Teams that I don't know where it is right now. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to forego these presentations, but oh, that's really too bad. There should be a okay. See. Yeah, I can't find that setting, and I remember it's somewhere. So what I'll do then is I'll have to get you to go on this by yourself, and I apologize for that. I'll find out where that setting is. It doesn't come on automatically. I have to toggle it, but I just can't find out where it is right now. Okay, so anyways, this is only like about a 2-minute video. It's really good in terms of explaining what's going on. So we're okay. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of this here. Okay, then I had another video. Um, can you hear me okay? Can you hear me right now? Just
Yes,
give me a
sir. Yes,
thumbs.
sir.
Okay, all right. There's another video on here on setting goals, and I wanted you to hear this video as well because we're in topic 9. We're going to cover goal setting, and you need to set some goals, as a team. And this is a very good video. It's only about 5 minutes long, but it's really sort of a pragmatic approach to setting goals. And just so you know that I put this piece on Blackboard. And if you try to click on that actual link on Blackboard, it won't go through because it goes to the the Mind Tools, and it won't allow it. But if you go to this presentation, or if you copy that link and then you go onto your own browser, you'll get to it. And it's a really good video to be able to go through and what it is. But what the key message around Matt Saunders is that not only people want to get to the nuts and bolts of the tactics and the activities of what's going on, and really what you need to do is you need to start with a vision of where do you want to be, and you need to take a look at what are the opportunities you're trying to extract, and that will really help you set better goals to go forward. So that was what this was all about. Just sorry that that I couldn't find that sound toggle, and I'll do that as soon as this is over. Okay, so slideshow. Yeah, all right. So from the current slide. Okay, so again, here's another piece of showing you what the phases are of team development. So it really covers off what's in that video, and you can see on the forming side, it's you're displaying the eagerness, you're socializing, and you're unclear about how someone fits. You're sizing them up, and then when it's when people start to try to assert themselves, well, then all of a sudden you start getting some resistance. You might have people that just kind of check out because they don't feel that the group is going in the right direction. There's competition for who's going to do what, high emotions. And again, as a manager, as a team leader, and this is important, is that you let this happen. This is human nature. And people need to kind of experience that so that they understand and they deal with the issues that are on the table to get to the next phase when they're norming. I mean, if you let just something, if you don't raise it, then it won't get dealt with, right? So you need to have that storming action before you start norming, and then you get improved commitment, and the anxiety goes down, and people start to coalesce together and start helping each other, and then you really get into performing. And then at the end of it, and this has been added on, I guess, years after Tuckman came up with this, but a journey, because sometimes projects, they should end sooner than they do, and I'll talk about that at some other time. Okay, so decisions. Decisions are all about making good choices, and aligning those good choices results in success. And so that you also have to remember, and some of you have taken economics, or some of you are already taking microeconomics now, but you need to understand what you give up to get, and that's opportunity cost. That's just an economic parameter, right? So you understand that that the alternative that you've chosen is better than the next best alternative, and why. And that's what really kind of supports and validates what you've done. All right. And the thing is, we're really good at comparing things, as human beings, but we're not as good, some are, but in general, we're not as good as conceptualizing something. So it's always good to have 2 or 3 alternatives to compare. And normally what happens, especially if you have 3 alternatives, is that you start picking the best out of those 3 alternatives. You come up with a 4th alternative that you never thought about, and it's much better. All right. And that's what they teach you in total quality management. So, that's important as well. Okay. So, and I'm just getting up the chat here just in case I missed something. Okay. And know, what are the critical success factors? And again, that's another parameter I'm going to talk about, in topic 9 when we talk about strategic planning, because there's certain, in gambling, they call it table stakes. There's certain things you have to address to be successful, or to stay in the game, right? And if you don't know what those are, then you really cannot make an effective decision. And then you have to be aware of biases, and that's where one of your participation activities will come through. And we've got about 3 or 4 slides in this presentation that talk about the different types of biases and how that affects our decision making. Right. So organizations that ask the better questions result in having the better outcomes. All right. And we're going to talk about bounded rationality. You can see that this is highlighted here, and and what this is all about is sometimes we're lazy and we don't want to absorb all the information. We just want to make a decision and we think it's going to work. And this is an important word. It's a test word. Okay, it's a test word. We're satisficing. All right, we're basically compromising. Just because we just want to be satisfied and move on, and if you satisfice rather than optimize, you won't make the right decision, right? So those are the key things about, making good decisions. And there's different styles. And again, I'll get back to, the assignments that we're giving you. I want you to use the terminology of what we're using, so that you might, assignment number 2 might say, what kind of a decision maker are you? And you might say, well, I'm an action-oriented decision maker, but I really want to hear, yes, I have a directive style of making decisions, and that means I'm action-oriented. So use the terminology, and you can see that there's different styles. There's directive, there's analytical, there's conceptual, there's behavioral, and I'll kind of get into that, explaining them. And then now here's where we make the connection, right? So several management theorists have contributed significantly to understanding various styles of decision making. So if you go through, in Frederick Taylor, known for scientific management, well, his decision making was all around a task optimization and efficiency. Henry Fayol was all about, look at planning, organizing, leading, and controlling the management functions. That's what we took, in topic 1, and there's a few test questions around that. So I want you to go back to topic 1 and really look into what planning, organizing, leading, and controlling is all about. Herbert Simon talks about bounded rationality. Another test question, by the way, all right? In decision making, acknowledging that managers often make decisions and they have limited information and they've not gone beyond their barriers to really find out additional information that could really complement their decision making, and that's what they call bounded. Well, we'll look at it based on what we know. So here's a typical thing that you could remember, right? So somebody lost their car keys and they're looking under the street lamp for their car keys, and their car is parked, three car lengths away. Oh, well, they're looking under the light because they can see under the light. Well, that's bounded rationality. Let's look for the keys where your car is, all right, and the path that you've taken from your car and back, right? So that's what to understand. Daniel Goldman, he identified 6 leadership styles and to work on emotional intelligence. So how do you make decisions based on using your emotional intelligence? So this goes on and on. I'm not going to go to each one, but you can see that, we've talked about, and we're going, we're covering these, different theorists and their theories, as we go through these topics. So it's really important to go through this, especially, when you're going to be doing, assignment number 2. Okay. Again, Kurt Lewin, really important. He's come up with this change management model about, unfreeze, change, refreeze. That's a key, model that you're going to have to know about. Edward de Bono, if you're a creative type, this is probably the best method, with 6 thinking hats, is to give multiple perspectives of how you make decisions. All right. And then Peter Drucker, management of objectives. And guess what? There's things that you need to know about management by objectives as well, in I think test number 2. Okay, so here we kind of put it together, right? And what we have here is that, the 4 general types that I talked about, analytical decision maker, conceptual decision maker, directive decision maker, behavioral decision maker. Well, the thing is that you have one predominant style of making decisions, such as I, and it just turns out, if you have a high tolerance for ambiguity, some people can't handle ambiguity. My wife, all right. So that you're going to be up in this portion of it. You're either going to be analytical or conceptual or a little bit of both, and here, a high value orientation of people. Well, you're going to be on, on this side of this 2x2 matrix. Whereas, if you're a task person and whatever, and technical, you're going to be on this side. So I just wanted to kind of demonstrate where I am. I'm highly conceptual around the decisions that I make, and I have an analytical bent. And then I really appreciate, the behavioral piece. And I only get directive is when things aren't meeting the targets that they're meeting, all right? But that's my predominant piece. And I'm sure that, when things get stressful, I probably move more to the left side of this 2x2 matrix, where I'm more concerned with the task than I am with the people, all right? So again, the answer is it depends. It depends on the situation. And what I really want you to understand is that in our world today, when we're talking about, we're talking about sustainability, we really should be taking under consideration triple bottom line. What's this going to do from a social aspect? Are we going to be socially or corporate socially responsible in making this decision? Are we going to be responsible around the environment? Or are we just going to take a look at the prosperity side and look at the profits that we're going to make? Right. So this comes into play, especially where, you are going into the next, phase of our economy when artificial intelligence is going to pose so many challenges, and you need a guiding light, and that's triple bottom line to be able to make the decisions. All right, so it's good to find out where do you fit, and that's what assignment number 2 is going to ask you to do, and I'm just going to pull that up here because I do have it here. Where are we here? Okay. And basically, we're going to ask you, what, let me get right to the questions. What kind of manager are you? Well, I want you to define the terminology. Well, a leadership type of manager, like I'm an autocratic manager, or I'm a democratic manager. What type of decision maker are you? So you have to answer those questions. What level of management would you be most successful in? But the key message here is that, please, all right, read the instructions and read what the expectations are around this assignment, and really what I want you to do is to think critically and really kind of comment on, why you answer that. And again, keep your answers to a reasonable length. And really, what's really important is keep the numbering and the subheadings of each question, because I have a spreadsheet like this, and I follow your answers. And if you've used a different numbering system, or if you haven't, it complicates the amount of time and the effort it takes for me to give you a good mark. All right, so help me help you on this piece. So any questions about that? Any questions about assignment number 2? Okay, go ahead, Nick.
Sorry, so what do you want us doing with the main header 7, subheader 1 exactly?
Okay, yeah. So what you do is when you answer this first question, I want you to actually put that, put number 1 down and actually say, what kind of manager are you? And then put in A and say, this is the kind of manager I am, and this is why. And then B is it, how do you know that? Well, because of these particular theories that I've connected to. And then, what management skills you have. So C, and so that way I can follow your path, right? And what you're helping me do is you're helping me navigate your paper. And what are you doing then? You're actually looking at your audience and appreciating what your audience wants. And this is going to really help you in business, right? And this is what this is all about. I put that article out, or one of my announcements around, you're establishing a moment of truth. So when I see, just straight paragraphs with no headings, I say, is this person organized? Did they do what they needed to do? Right. So that's what I'm looking for. And oh, by the way, in my business, I applied for a lot of projects, to do consulting, and you answer, a request for proposal. And guess what? If you don't cover the way that they want you to answer that request for proposal, they won't even look at your proposal. That's it. You're done. All right. So it's really kind of preparing you for reading instructions and following instructions, and really getting to the crux of what does your audience want, and how do I do that for them to show that I put rigor into my answers, and I'm giving you as the audience the confidence that, hey, I've really done I've done a good job. Okay, does that help, Nick?
Yeah, and I assume the numbers are how many marks each part's worth?
That's right. All right. So if you take a look at question 1, in total is worth 7 marks. and that means A is worth 1, B is worth 3, and C is worth 3. So, this, 1 plus 3 plus 3 is 7, right? So that's how that all works. So you get to sense where the emphasis should be, okay? All right, any other questions? Okay, so we'll get back to the presentation. Okay, so again, we talk about, sorry, just a second here, I gotta set my. Okay, so we talk about, directive decision-making. Well, this style is rooted in Frederick Taylor's scientific management. And again, you can see that this is way down here, in terms of, the Industrial Revolution. And we're kind of leaning away here on the empathy focus, for artificial intelligence. And not only that, this, I've just updated this as well based on some reading. It's not only empathy, it's trust, all right, that you're going to have to contend with as well. Because if you take a look at the trends, in the trust of people in institutions and businesses, there's so much misinformation out there. You need to spend a lot more time, in your management evolution of putting people to rest, saying, hey, we're a trustworthy organization. This is why you should believe what we're saying, all right? So that's going to enter as much as into the empathy where the triple bottom line comes in, okay? All right, so analytical decision making, well, Herbert Simon's, unbounded rationality, all right? And looking at, the cognitive capacity and decision making. Conceptual, well, Herbert Simon's behavioral theory and James Marr. And so, that's where you're going. So here's the thing, though. Each of these styles offers a unique advantage and can be effective in different situations. And you have your predominant style, and sometimes, you happen to be in the right organization with the right culture where you fit perfectly, and you can go on, right? But when things change, you should have in your back pocket at least 3 more decision-making styles that you can switch to be able to accommodate the situation. I mean, that's what the leading HR consulting firms say, is that, in terms of leadership styles, in terms of decision-making styles, you should always have a portfolio of those. And that selection is based on the type of position, organization, industry that you work in, all right? That's going to work for you. Okay, so here we're going to do, we're going to try this now. We're going to put you out into into breakout groups, all right? And I see that there's 33 of you. And we're going to do about 6 minutes. And what I'd like you to do is just discuss, so you learn from each other, and you might want to write this down, because I just learned how I'm going to, shoot you an actual broadcast with this slide, and I don't know if it's going to work. So, but what it is I want, what is it about the decision you had to make, your best decision ever, and what was the outcome, and why was it a good decision, and how did you make this decision? And each member can offer up what they think there is their predominant style of decision making. So again, I'm gonna actually put you in your breakout rooms, and then give you 6 minutes to talk about that. And then if you have some really good insights, just put them on the chat, when you get out, okay? All right, let's try this now. Okay, where are we going here?
Hi guys. Hello. Yes. What is that?
First robot from a race car to a robot. This awesome tractor. Car and handle. This cool Jeep. A futuristic car.
So we're gonna share like our best decisions in life. Yes. Okay, cool. A sec. I think, can I start first? Yeah. Okay. I think for me the decision that I had to make is coming here to Canada to study again. The outcome I expect to achieve is to finish my studies this year. It's a good decision because I was able to bring my family with me together and learn again after like 16 years of working. I'll be able to study again, take up business diploma here. How did you make this decision? Well, it was a mutual decision between me and my husband and also my kids. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, that's great sharing. All right. So I
Thank
think
you.
I'm gonna call you guys all back to okay.
Who would like to share next?
I can share next.
Okay.
The best decision is when I came here to Canada as well, still the same. And my expectation is to finish study and to work aligned with the studies I've made. And what's the other question again? I'm sorry.
Why was it a good decision?
It
And
was
how did you make this decision?
it was a good decision because going outside the country is like out of my comfort zone, and it helps me on my uh it helps me on my growth as well, and to explore new places and culture.
Okay, so we're back to the main room. I'm hoping that maybe you learned something from your peers. Uh, but essentially, decision making is a complex piece, and what I'm saying is find an approach to making a decision that works for you. And that likely will be your predominant style, and then learn how to adjust. All right, to make decisions based on other situations. So what I heard just from the groups as well is that a lot of decisions that were made were family decisions, and everybody was involved. And when you get everybody involved, then you have a lot of buy-in, and then it makes that decision much easier. And people are aligned to making it work for you. All right. So those are some of the things that I learned out of just some brief discussions. Okay. All right, so here's some resources to check out. I talked to you about a brief history of management. That's going to outline all the theorists and the theories, that we're covering in this particular course, and then showing how the theorists and the connect to the tools. That's another piece, and then connecting the Rebel surveys. Well, why are you taking this particular survey? Well, it's basically aligns with a particular theory to really get you to understand is that, how do you align with the, okay, let me see here. Thanks, Jen. All right, so okay, so I'm sharing. So again, that last survey is connecting the Rebel survey to management theory table. It basically shows you how how that survey is meaningful to a particular theory or principles or some tools. Okay, so those are the three documents that you should get out. They will help you with assignment 2 and the tests as we go forward. Okay, so these were the questions. Again, that assignment is due February the 12th. And oh, by the way, if anybody has a question about that assignment, please, email me, and then I will answer it, and I will actually put it on the announcements as well, to share that information. Okay. Okay. And the thing is, there's another paper out here. You don't have to read it, but I just thought it would be a lot more relevant in terms of where we're going, in the trends. And what we're doing is, how does AI, how's that gonna help you make decisions? So do you have a question? Ogbonaya, do you have a question? You could unmute and ask a question
Yes,
if you like.
yes, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I've not been able to go into the charter for the first assignment. The document you sent, I'm unable to edit it. I've tried severally and it did not allow me to log in. I don't know what happened. So I was even trying to do you a mail this afternoon to know what the next step to go towards it.
Okay, so just send me an email and maybe show me a couple of screenshots of what you tried to do, and then I would understand because I can see that so far I think most people were accessing, especially my Google Drive because they get a notice on one of my other emails that it's been accessed. So just send me an email and we'll set that up tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, because our group, on my own group, I'm unable to put in the names of people in my group. I don't know what happened. That's why I said, let me speak to you but I'm going to do you an email this night.
Okay. The thing is too, is that, that you may be able to access it through Blackboard as well. If you go to, the topic 1, I think I have a link there as well to go to that learning team charter. Okay.
Okay.
I'll give that a shot. But anyways, send me an email and I'll set you up.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So here's another thing. All right. So how can artificial intelligence systems, how can it help you improve decision making? I just did a little bit of a scenario planning analysis, and man, it was just so powerful. And I went to Copilot, and it helped me kind of lay out the whole scenario plan, and so that those technologies, they can give you real-time tracking and improve prediction and virtual role play to train workers. So there's all kinds of things that AI can provide in the future here, and it'll make sense. So now we're getting into the different types of decision making, and one, and you can see now this is highlighted, so it's probably important to know. So I'd like you to know, what is a garbage can model? I've used this in town hall meetings, and what it is, I do table topics, and I'd ask people, all right, so we need to solve this problem. What do you think the solution is? But when you do this, it's a free for all. All right, it could be a gong show, but it's very effective because sometimes you find out things that you never would have thought about when you're in a group setting. And so that they could, they call this like the organized anarchist view of decision making, because there's a lot of fluidity that goes on and you can learn a lot. So it's a good, it's a good model to look at. And then I've given you some definition. Well, what's an organized anarchy, right? So they're problems and solutions that are loosely coupled, and then sometimes you can find opportunities amongst that, and also organized anarchies. You can look at some really choice opportunities using this garbage can model, and you can see that it's highlighted, so it's important to know about. And you use it to solve problems, and normally in large groups. And what the benefit is as well is that when you get large groups in on solving the problem, you set the expectation saying, we're going to make the call as managers, on all this information that we collected. But they feel that they've been heard and they have buy-in when you have the final decision on what you're going to do. So it has a lot of good positive effects from there. And then taking a look at decision making in an organization, group size really matters. All right. So if you're in a group from 3 or 7 to 10, you can likely make a decision, and people will go along with it. But when you get to larger groups, it's really hard, to get anything done, to be able to do that. And normally, sometimes, you'll make a decision as an individual, rather than go to the group. So myself as a manager, right? So if I decided that the lunchroom needed to be painted, I'd make that decision myself rather than to get everybody involved, and we'd paint it green. All right. And that's the way it goes, and it gets done, and it's effective, and it's uncostly. But if you have a decision where you need expertise and you need some diversity on there, well, then you need to bring people from that group in, and it takes a lot more time, and it takes a lot more effort, and it takes and there's risk of conflict, and so that it's a different matter. So understand that group versus individuals and group size matters on making a decision. So what's the advantages of group decision making? Well, pool of knowledge, diverse alternatives, better understanding. Disadvantage, well, sometimes if you're too strong of a manager, and if you're seen as very directive, people will just sit back and say, well, let that manager make the decision, or they'll talk about what they think you want to hear as a manager, and that's basically groupthink. And groupthink can be very limiting, on making really good decisions in a group. And then again, this word satisficing, we got 2 hours, and we're working overtime here. Let's just agree on something so we can get out of here and get home. And that's no way of making a decision. Okay, here's a little more about groupthink, so that it's important. What causes it? Well, resistance to assumptions, or you have a dominant member that pressures others, or and how you minimize it? Well, you set the context, and you take fear out of the situation, and here's the 6 thinking hats to go through the different perspectives, to be able to show the aspects of the results of making that decision. Okay, I talked about bounded rationality. This is, you can see it's highlighted. It's really important in terms of, knowing what that's all about. And, it's, you get into this satisficing model. So you have to worry about, making sure that, you've got to open it up and find the right kind of information to make decisions. I'm not going to talk about that one. But here is that, I've done a lot of work in total quality management, and essentially in TQM, you're always asked to take a minimum of 3 alternatives and compare them. And that's the only way that you really kind of get across biases, or get through biases, because now you're looking at facts, and you get a sense of what that situation can look like, and what the parameters could be. And like I said, when you're looking at 3 different alternatives, chances are you could take the best from each one of those alternatives and come up with a 4th alternative. And once you do that, you go through the evaluation, then you get a really optimum solution on what you're trying to do. So here's a model, this traditional decision-making process. So you identify that problem, and then what you need to do is identify what's important about that problem. So what is the criteria? What are you going to base that decision on? And again, that depends. It depends on the situation. It depends on the industry. It depends on, what you're trying to do. It depends on the timeline, all those things. So that's where the criteria comes in. And you allocate weights to different criteria, because some criteria are more important than the other. And that way, you get you get a better value or ranking of what you need to do. And then you develop alternatives, and then you analyze those alternatives and compare them based on your criteria. And then you select that alternative, and then you implement, and then you're never done there. You always reevaluate that decision. In some cases, you may evaluate it on an annual basis and test the original assumptions, because the assumptions may have changed, and you may want to tweak that. But here's the key thing about the decision-making process. A clear definition of the problem, is roughly 90% of the solution. And here's what Einstein has to say about that. If I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solutions. So really, what you need to do is you need to define a problem as understood, and that really gives you a sense of, okay, now we really understand what this situation is. And out of that, a lot of times it's obvious what the solutions can be. So I'll leave you with that piece. And then sometimes, we talked about, I talked about weighting, so you would make a decision based on these key criteria, these factors, and then you'd weight them. You'd say, okay, so factor one is maybe 20% of the weighting of that decision, or factor two is maybe, it's a needed one, but it's only 5%. And then when you do that, you multiply the factors times the rating of that decision to get a ranking, and I'll show you that. So here's where you did a factor rating on an example, and you wanted to know, did we want to operate in France, or did we want to operate in Denmark? And you could see that labor, had a factor of 25% of the overall decision. And you look at a score, so you'd multiply this 0.25 times the 70 on the France score and 0.25 times 60 on the Denmark score. And then you can see that, the France score is higher, than the Denmark score. And when you go through these calculations, then you take, the total, and you can see that the overall total, based on a factor rating of the weightings times, the rating itself, the total is higher, and that's, you decide to go to France. All right. So if you don't understand this, let me just go to this piece here. No, sorry, that's another piece. I'll leave it there. And then there's different types of problems. So what a structured problem is, it's straightforward. I mean, you've done this maybe many times before, and you know what the parameters are. So that, you can almost have, program decisions, and you can decide this by policy. If this happens, then you do this. If that happens, you do this, right? And that's structured because, you know what the outcomes can be, and it's not complicated. That's what a structured problem is. Now, an unstructured problem, it's unusual, and the information's ambiguous, and you haven't done it before. And so it requires like a custom-made solution. And then it also requires to bring in the right people that can contribute to solving that problem, maybe experts in different fields. And it's a different approach. And you need to really kind of, depend on the actual overall thinking of the overall group to make that decision. And then there's different conditions. So there's certainty. Well, you know what accurate decisions, because of the outcome of every alternative, is known. So hey, you can do that. But sometimes there's some risk involved. So you may want to evaluate the risks of each part of that solution to see what the likelihood of the outcome could be. And then straight uncertainty, and that's most of the problems that we have to solve as managers. The outcomes are not known, and the ability to determine the probability of outcomes are not known. So you make the best assumptions that you can going into it. You have the right amount of experts going into it, and then you test that even, once you've gone with that solution to make sure that the assumptions that you've made are still valid, and you learn and you adjust, based on the learnings of the outcomes. And that's why they have test markets for products like in Peterborough. If Procter and Gamble, want to test a new type of toothpaste, they will have done a whole pile of marketing studies and done surveys and done focus groups. But again, they're not quite sure how the public is going to agree with this new ingredient they put in, and so they'll test that, based on the best assumptions, and then see how the reaction is, and then adjust. All right, so that's what that's all about. And so when you're making decisions with uncertainty, there's a max-min approach to that, and it gets a little bit complicated. And we're running out of time, so I'll kind of talk to you a little bit about it. But there's a little video at the end here that you can actually play, and it really explains it quite well. Okay, so there's the maximax, and that's where you try to maximize the largest possible gain. But obviously, there's some risk involved. And then there's the max min, and that's when you maximize, the minimum possible payoff. So that, so you're a little more pessimistic and you're a little more risk averse. And then the mini max, and then you try to minimize the maximum regret, right? And that's the way of looking at it. So, here's there's, you want to do an expansion, on your company. And you want to decide between, well, do we want to do a large expansion? Do we want to do a small expansion? Or let's do nothing, what happens? And based on, those three decisions, you take a look at maybe oil prices is the biggest factor in your success rate, to make this work. So like you're an oil refinery or whatever, all right? So if oil prices rise, all right, you can make a profit of $9 billion, all right, on your large expansion. But if oil prices drop, you could lose 20 billion, all right? So on the maximax, the optimistic approach, the best payoff is this, right? On the conservative approach, the maximum, the best of the worst payoff is this. And then when you take a look at the regret table, you can see that, on this one here, doing nothing is the minimum regret. This is, you lose the least amount of money, all right? And that's how you make that. But this looks a bit complicated. You go through it, but I've given you some definitions here. And if you go through this video and go through this piece, you'll have a second chance to really understand, what this is all about. Okay, will you get a specific problem like this on the test? No, but it's really good to understand what's going on. Okay, the next thing is, cognitive bias. And the thing is that there's several different kinds, and, this is one of the participation topics. So, you want to pick one of these and talk about it. But, here they are. But I've gone through and given you definitions of each one of these. Overconfidence bias. I've been with, in groups where the tendency to overestimate, some person saying, hey, we can really make this work, and it's often leading to excessive confidence and risk taking. And then you get into problems because some of those risks weren't anticipated. And it's only because, the leader was overconfident and driving to that decision. Bandwagon wagon effect, that's when everybody jumps on it. If everybody's doing it, then it must be right. Confirmation bias, well, you tend to search, for the result that you're looking for. So have a look at these and understand them, because, part of the participation pieces are there for it. Okay, so the role in AI in decision making is going to play a really big role, coming forward, because AI is getting better and better at looking at more and more data and getting more robust ways of really analyzing to be able to understand what the outcomes could be. All right, and so that humans just can't process all that information anymore, and humans suffer from bias. But again, you could program in bias, so you got to be really careful. Okay, so the role, all kinds of different reasons for using AI in decision making, and again, it's especially when you're dealing with big data, AI comes in and it can recommend possible actions, but then you still need to use human judgment, and that's why it's so important, like in this course, that we're teaching you, critical thinking, because you will always have a job to be able to kind of oversee, what your AI is doing and validate, that it's working properly, right? So that's where you come in. You make that human judgment, and then you actually make those decisions. So here's what it's all about: is that back in the day, the data would just tell you, well, what's there, okay, and then it's all over the place, and you're not quite sure what to make of it. But then what you do then is that you figure out, well, why is it happening, right? So you can drill down and you can get to some root causes. So now you understand the problem a lot more. But now when AI gets in there, it's so good at doing the diagnostic that it can actually predict for you, and then you as a human being can then test those predictions. But what's going to happen again is that AI is going to be even much better at doing predictive stuff, and it'll get to the point where you start relying on AI to tell you what to do. It'll be prescriptive. And that's where the AI has turned from a tool to an agent. And that's where you really get into some problems in terms of making ethical and corporate social types of responsibility type of decisions. So again, you really need to know how that's going. Okay, so again, you can see that this is highlighted. So knowing, well, it can do decision to support, but it can also do decision augmentation, where it's predictive and prescriptive, and then you get down to the decision automation, and then it just gets done by the machine, and that gets a little bit different. So this slide, take a look at this. You place mark this slide, because you're gonna, you're likely going to use this information in your group assignment, for Amazon and assignment number 4. So, keep this in mind, especially this 2 pizza rule. No more people in a meeting than 2 pizzas can feed. And, we talked about the number of people, the optimum number of people to make a decision, by a group. And that's how Amazon kind of, keeps to those rules to make sure that the decisions are robust and they make sense. Okay, so now we're getting into management styles of effective leaders, and management styles, a way you work to achieve goals of a project or a team or a company. And again, I want you to keep to the definitions. When you're asked, well, what kind of manager are you? I want you to kind of talk about, the terminology that we've used, and you're going to see that, like, you're a democratic manager or you're an autocratic manager. And I've connected, the different theorists, to these pieces, so that then you can comment on, what does Kurt Lewin have to say about democratic management? And that's what aligns with me. I'm really talking about assignment number 2, right? Going through. So use this nomenclature when answering questions in the assignments, and go through that and look at these pieces. And the reason why I'm spraying through this is because I'm running out of time here. So again, how can I identify my own management styles? And that's where you're doing in terms of, the self-assessment and the rebel. And that is likely your predominant style. And then you build up your portfolio of additional styles to fit your organization, in particular, your organization's culture and the actual work situation. We're going to talk about situational analysis or situational management, where the answer is it depends. It depends on the situation. It depends on how prepared the workforce is. It depends on what's going on in the environment. It depends on the types of skills, how motivated they are, and that changes what kind of leadership style that you can use. So how do you develop that? Well, self-assessment. You get feedback from others. You understand those different styles, and you observe role models, particularly, all right, in the corporate culture that you're working in, because you can look at a role model that may be working really well in that particular environment, but it's not the environment that you're working in, so you can't really kind of emulate that and be successful. So that's what you have to look at. And you got to consider your values, your core values, and what your goals are, and experiment and adapt. And it's all about continuous learning. And I'm an old guy, and I still I'm learning about my particular style and what works and what doesn't, and where I could have made different decisions and applied myself differently for a management style to make things work. Especially when it came down to some of the volunteer organizations that I worked in. Again, you're going to do this true colors piece, and in one of your participation activities, but take a look at what organized gold is. These are the main, attributes of an effective manager. So knowing, and you see where this key is, so that's really important. And then take a look at your inventory. And then just a little bit about making good decisions. If you go through and take be strong about finding a decision-making process that works for you, there's all kinds of benefits, and employees will be able to contribute more effectively if you do that. Employees will feel stronger sense of ownership. So and you can read about this a little more, but what I wanted to kind of introduce you to is Jeff Olson. And what this is that, you make decisions and take in life, in business, and you have certain habits, that get you to do stuff because you've made particular decisions. And what it is, it's like compound interest. So if you're making these simple decisions and they're the right decisions, the right choices, it takes a long time before it really starts to pay off. But if you're not making those decisions properly, well, then it's going the other way. And that's the key message, is that, it just doesn't happen overnight. And making decisions is really part of life. And what you try to do is optimize the conditions to be able to make those better choices. And it could be in finances and health and business and whatever. And this guy here, was a beach bum. Turned out to be a millionaire because he discovered this way of making decisions. I'd recommend that maybe you get his book summary and read it. All right. Another really good book, is this one, Chip and Dan Heath, probably one of the better books I've ever read. And then decision making with uncertainty. We're going to talk about total quality management and Edward Deming, and he came up with this process. Plan, do, check, act, and it's the Deming wheel, and it really gives you a good sense of you plan on what you're going to do, you do it, and you check, and it may not work exactly for you, so you make a change, and then you do it all over again. So that's where that is. So we're at the end. Okay, I'm hoping that you see this particular topic as crucial for your success, in your business life piece and in your life period, so that the lessons that you could learn here will really help you be, a more effective person and get a little more happiness in life. And I can tell you, I really applied myself to. I read this book about 15 years ago, and I still apply the concepts today. And not only that, I've got my children and my grandchildren, tuned into, what this is all about. And I'll tell you, I'm a lot more effective than I was, before, because I've really taken heed of some of the concepts that Jeff Olson talks about. And it's all, it's all decision making. It's what you decide to do. So I'll leave you with that. Okay. So any questions at all? You can unmute and ask me any questions. And again,
Thank you.
Bonanaya, please send me an email and we'll set you up to do the charter, and we'll go from there. Okay? And if that's the case, then I'll sign off and wish you the best part of your week, and
Thank you,
keep
sir.
yeah. Sorry, Mohammed.
Thank you. Thank you for the lecture, sir.
Okay, all right, and take care of yourself.